What's up, everybody? Welcome back to another Shop Talk Tuesday. So in this episode, we are starting the new build series for the Shop Talk Tuesdays. And if you're new to the build series version of these, what I do is I take all the little steps of knife making and I break them down into more depth so that you can actually get a better understanding of a lot of things that we do and a lot of things that knife makers say whenever they're actually going through and making the knives. You know, a lot of the videos that you watch on YouTube basically is a whole bunch of time lapse. It's a whole bunch of people just moving from step to step to step to step, and you're just trying to play catch up to understand what the hell just happened in that last clip, and you're rewinding it, rewinding it, rewinding it, and you're trying to figure out what's going on. In these videos, we break all those steps down, talk a little bit more, and give you some more in-depth knowledge. So in this episode, we are going to be focusing on being able to maximize your steel. So we're going to be making this knife right here. Cool template, cool little thing that I drew out. But our issue is our steel is too short. But we have a lot of steel in here that we can move, so we could squeeze this and extend this out. And you'll see what I'm talking about whenever we start forging it. But we've got all this steel in here. We might as well utilize it to help give us the extra length. So I'm not going to be completely forging this to shape. What we're going to focus on today is getting this steel moved and extended and then getting it flat. Because right now we still have that leaf spring curve to it. It still has a bend to it. So we're going to need to flatten it out. We're going to need to squeeze this steel in and do that. That is the goal of this. Now, the reason why I'm not forging it to shape is because that's not realistic for some people who don't have the skills to be able to start forging knives to shape. But what you can do is you can maximize your steel, not sacrifice all that steel by grinding it away or cutting it off and end up throwing it away. I'm going to get all the steel that I need out of this piece and we're going to be good to go. So let's jump out in the forge and let's start this process. So what I've been doing lately is I've been going through and actually marking my template on the anvil. So for knives where I'm having to move a lot of material, I'll go through and I'll just mark the outline. You know, I'm not really going to be, like I said, forging this one to shape, but being able to easily see the dimensions that I'm going for whenever it comes to like the overall length and the handle shape and all that. It is nice having this on here so that as I'm going through and trying to figure out, okay, where do I need to start coming in on this? I know that this is good here, so that's good there. So my handle needs to start about right there, and I need to get all of the extra length back here because right now I am about an inch and a half too short here. So I know that I need to start forging in here, start hammering in this section right here. Start hammering, getting this compressed, and as I compress this, it's going to start pushing this out because I'm going to compress and then I'm going to hammer here. So hammer here, and then I'm going to flatten it again, hammer it, flatten it, hammer it, flatten it, so that I keep this consistent width here, or thickness. So as I'm doing that, that material only has one way to go, and that is this way. So it's going to be pushing the blade section forward and this back piece back. The whole entire time, it's just going to start opening and opening and opening and opening until I end up with the length that I want. And then at that point, I can go ahead and draw out my template and everything. Right now, I have the right amount of height, so I don't want to be trying to hammer right here. I want to focus on this section through here to get my length out of there. So that's the goal. So we're going to start this off by hammering in an indentation that is going to give us our defined area that lets us know where the blade's going to be and where the handle's going to be, so that we know where we're going to primarily focus on while forging this material out. Now you're going to see me get pretty aggressive with my hammer strikes on this. That's pretty much because leaf spring material is very hard to move under the hammer, and it takes a lot of work to get it to go where you want it to. One of the things you'll notice is if you go from 5160 leaf spring material like this to then hammering on something like 1084 or 80 CRV2 or any of those steels, you'll realize that you are you'll think you're a lot stronger than you are, because you'll be really moving that material quite easily, because it's so much easier to move than the leaf spring material. But we're going to keep going with this, and we're going to be hammering on it vertical and flat. And while we're hammering on it vertical like this, we're squeezing the steel, and then as we start flattening it out, we're stretching the steel. And you can see right here, the steel popped out of these tongs. Later in the video, I'm going to talk about some tongs that I had to make in order to be able to do this process, because you'll see me use a bunch of different tongs during this process because none of them were really working for what I needed. You see here, I'm on the second set of tongs, and then I'm going to be using a third set. It's just a whole bunch of different things that are not necessary, so don't be afraid to make your own tool whenever you need to. Now, we are going to be continuing this process where we are hammering on it vertical, laying it down, and flattening it. And again, as we're doing that, we are squeezing it vertical and then stretching it horizontal. And this works out real well. You can get a lot of steel out of what you have rather than having to change the shape of your knife to fit the steel that you have and sacrifice, you know, different parts of your blade and throwing metal away by doing just stock removal. Being able to do some forging and some stock removal is the way to go. Now here you'll see me switch between the rounding side of my hammer and the flat side of my hammer. And all I'm doing here is using that round part to really compress the steel, and then switch to the flat to flatten it back out. And what's happening here is whenever you're hammering on it vertical, you are basically, I've said this a couple of times, you're compressing it, so as it is coming down, the flat area is getting wider. Now, it's not getting wider over the whole side of the steel. It's primarily just under the area where you're hammering. So what you're going to be doing, you're going to feel like you are negating your work, because whenever you go to squeeze it, like I'm doing right here with the horn and the hammer, you are just almost widening the area, like I said, just under the hammer. And whenever you go to flatten it, you're going to feel like you just undid all of the work that you just got done doing, but really you are stretching it as you're going. It's kind of an optical illusion. So don't, be thinking that you're just undoing all of your work every time you go to flatten it. Now right here, this is where I really decide, okay, all these tongs I've been using do not work. I'm going to end up making a different set of tongs that you'll see in the next clip. But right here, we need to go ahead and start curving the hook that goes around your pinky. So this is going to be the butt of the knife. There's a big curve that comes around from the spine of the knife down to the belly of the tang. And that's what we're trying to forge in right now. And these tongs were just not working. I was getting stressed out, I was getting frustrated, so I made the ones that are in the clip right here, and they worked out amazingly. You can see how well you can start moving the material whenever you have the right tools for the job. And one of the things you'll notice if you start swinging on the steel like this is you'll start curving the spine of the blade. So you'll need to go ahead and counteract that as you're going through this, because you don't want it to get too far, out of whack or out of hand. So as you're going through and hammering on areas like that and it starts messing with the shape of your blade, just go ahead, correct it, so that you can go ahead and keep going forward. And towards the end of this, I referenced the template a lot to make sure that I'm getting the proportions where I need it to be. So as I'm doing this, again, I'm just going through and kind of profiling the handle a little bit. I really didn't need to put this much profile into it. I could have easily done this in just kind of a square fashion or rectangular fashion, but I figured why not go ahead and do a little bit of pre-shaping with where the palm swell is going to be. So that's why I put in a little bit more work than was probably necessary to be able to do this. But as you start working on your forging techniques, you'll get used to things like this. We're going to go back, we're going to reference our template again, realize we need to go just a little bit further on that hook that comes around the pinky. And then we're going to start working on the horn just a little bit more, because we can finally start squeezing that last about a quarter of an inch out of this. So that's what I'm doing right here. I'm compressing that last little bit where your ring finger and your pinky are going to be on the handle, and I just extended it with just this little bit of work that I have done right here, a quarter of an inch, and finally got to where we needed to be lengthwise. Don't be afraid to use the horn of your anvil. It is an amazing part of an anvil, and you can do a lot of work with it. Now right here, I'm just doing some fine-tuning work just to make sure that I can finish getting everything nice and square, nice and round, and be done with the actual shaping part of this. Now, after this step, I did put it back in the forge and went through an annealing phase. So heated it all the way up to non-magnetic and then let it cool inside the forge so that we could do pinholes and things like that in the next video. Alright guys, let's go ahead and wrap this Shop Talk Tuesday up here. Now, as a reminder, the goal for this episode was not so much showing you how to completely make a knife. Whenever I'm doing the Shop Talk Tuesday build series, it's all about breaking down the small sections of making a knife to help you just figure things out as you go. Because again, a lot of the videos that people put out with knife making, it's a whole bunch of time lapse, it's a whole bunch of things sped up and not much explanation. That's why on these, I tend to talk a lot more while we're doing the processes, and I'll do all of the voiceovers, I do all of that stuff because not every build video that I do needs to have that. Whenever I've got these particular videos that help y'all understand a lot of the stuff that's happening in the primary build videos. So on this one, we were focusing on being able to maximize our material, being able to get something, that wasn't as long as what we wanted it to be, and be able to know, okay, cool, I can forge little areas out here, extend my steel down, and be able to do the shape that I wanted. If you remember, this is the shape right here that we were going with, and I was able to get that whole entire shape on here. So we were able to do that and achieve it. So that was the goal here. It wasn't so much to teach y'all how to completely forge a knife or anything like that. You know, that's the reason why I didn't do the whole forge to shape. If I wanted to forge it to shape, it would have been real easy. Forging this little area, and then the curve in the spine here would not have been difficult for me because I've done a lot of this. But the thing that I didn't want y'all to have to try and think through is all of the different types of flattening that you have to do to square something up, to smooth it out and do all that stuff whenever y'all start getting into these bigger sections. Whenever you're, you know, squeezing down the material and forging this little area and distorting all of this, this is a lot easier to flatten back out because this surface area is a lot narrower. So you can get your hammer typically and just keep it flat and get across this. But whenever you start getting into this area, your hammer might not hit flat here. It might hit here, then here, then here, then here, and then you're chasing that back and forth to be able to get this whole entire thing flat. So I didn't want to focus on that. I wanted to focus on the more beginner area. You might think, well, Eric, forging a handle to shape is a lot of work. It is, but it's also pretty forgiving in that area as opposed to your blade itself. This might be something that whenever you kick it to the side or something like that, you're going to have to chase that versus the handle. Let's say we had a little bit of something going on here. We could typically grind that flat or grind that off because that's going to be covered by handle scale material. All this stuff right here is not. Anything that you do to here that is a extra hammer mark or anything like that, that's there. It's, unless you just grind your blade super thin, it's there. So this right here is something you can really focus on if you want to try and get your material stretched out. So that's why I showed y'all that. Now, on the next episode, what we're going to go ahead and do, in the next Shop Talk Tuesday episode is what I'm talking about, what we're going to focus on is getting this ground to the rest of the shape. So going ahead and finishing the profile out, going ahead and getting our pinholes drilled, getting our sharpening choil drilled and done up. I'm doing my sharpening choil a little bit different on this knife than what I've done in the past. You can see it right there. I'm doing something just a little bit different. I've got a guy that I follow and he follows me. His name's Blake. It's Blake Parthenay or Parthenay. I don't know exactly how we go with his last name, but he does these cool sharpening choils that are like a P, and I'm going to do my version of that, so it's going to be pretty cool. I might do it in the shape of like an R, so we'll see how it goes. But we'll have that all in the next Shop Talk Tuesday. Guys, hopefully y'all are digging this profile. Hopefully y'all are digging this process. I know that a lot of y'all got a lot out of the last one that we did, and I'm excited about doing this on this whole Shop Talk Tuesday series. So if this helped y'all out, let me know in the comment section. Guys, if you would, give this video a thumbs up, share this video or one of my other videos. If you haven't yet, make sure you subscribe. Thank y'all for coming by. Thank y'all for spending your time with me. Y'all have an amazing day. Y'all stay safe out there. Catch y'all next time.